Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm from the South. I'm used to better. Good morning.
Good morning.
A few months ago, I had a conversation with Vernon and Leslie. We were talking about this conference. What do we want to accomplish? How can I contribute? Is there anything I can do to help here? And one of the early questions I asked was, what is your theme for this meeting? And they said, well, we don't have a theme for the meeting. Well, we need to come up with one. Why is a theme important? Because it brings focus. It causes us to look at a destination. It gives us a purpose for meeting. And for everything that's going to happen the next few days here, you want to start looking at this idea of transformation. So in that conversation, Vernon said something about how many times they've had to transform this company, and you heard some of those in his introductory remarks. So we picked up on transformation, and I'm going to speak to you this morning and again tomorrow morning. This morning I want to talk to you, to your mind and your heart. I want to talk to you about how you might want to consider transforming what you do for a living all day, every day. I want to look at how I can change and be better at what I'm doing, and you and I need to be looking at that regardless of what profession we're in. Vernon mentioned CQI, Continuous Quality Improvement. We're going to look at not only the fact that we need to improve, but how might you go about doing that? So this morning, my goal is to start plowing up your mind, preparing the field for the seeds, and then tomorrow morning, what we will do, and I can see that this remote has decided not to work. Tomorrow morning, what we will do is get specific about how you might want to go about changing anything about what you're doing in sales. We're going to look at sales from a slightly different perspective. I'm dealing this morning and tomorrow morning with sales professionals, not salespeople. Sales professionals, not salespeople. What's the difference? If you look at athletes, if you look at musicians, if you look at actors and actresses, there are people that do this as an amateur, and there are people who are paid for it. So why would somebody be paid for doing something versus an amateur? Tell me. Money is one. By the way, if you look in the dictionary under professional, I became a professional speaker. I thought that meant that I was quite the orator and all that stuff. It means you take money for it. Anything you've ever taken money for in your life, you are a professional one of those. I was a professional pallbearer for a while. So we're going to take money for it. What was your word? There, it just went away, didn't it, as a matter of fact? When you think about the professional athlete, what do you think about? Well, the professional musician is what?
Skill.
Skill. What else? Excellence. We think of them as being best in class. And that's what I'm dealing with. So I'm not going to give you any ideas about how to sell. I'm certainly not going to teach you any techniques, because techniques do not work. They used to, but techniques do not work. Most buyers are better at buying than salespeople are at selling. Most buyers are better at buying than salespeople are at selling, especially when you get into the larger accounts, the larger garden centers. In today's world, many buyers are better at selling than salespeople are. They've watched us parade in front of them, and they're picking up our ideas. One of the members of this group that Vernon is in, Vistage, a CEO, asked me to accompany him and his VP of sales on a significant sales call. This was so big, the chief was going to be involved in it. So we went in, as we normally do, and we established rapport. We talked to the customer for a while, and then it was obvious we were moving into the sales part of this conversation. At that point, the customer reached down behind his desk and pulled up a laminated card. He said, there are 5 essential ways of selling. Which one of these do you intend to use on me today? Who's in charge of the sales call? He is. And I want you to become sensitized. Who's better at this particular moment in the sales transaction, me or the person that I'm talking to? How can I take this to the next level? What could I be doing differently? So we're going to go through some content this morning. We're going to look at different ways of making things happen. And Let's begin right now with the introduction, and we'll do a little housekeeping. First of all, on the table in front of you, there is a handout. It is spiral bound. I'd like you to, first of all, put your name on the front cover. They all look the same right now. So if you would, put your name on the front cover so that if it gets mixed up somewhere, you will know that it is yours. Also, there is a steno pad there. I'd like you to open the steno pad to the first page. If you've already written on the first page, then you can flip over to the next page. And at the very top of that page, would you please write this phrase, "Things I intend to do differently, : things I intend to do differently, : And during today, this morning, and tomorrow morning with me, but most importantly, in the other presentations that are going to happen over the next 2 days, in the conversations you're having over dinner, during the break, during the social hours, if an idea comes to your mind, this is where it needs to go. We need to decide right now we're going to do something different. I may not know what it is right now, but I am going to do something different so that I can have a different result. Vernon and I did not discuss what you were going to speak this morning, right? Right. And yet it's right in mesh with what I'm going to be presenting as well. What that teaches us is great minds think alike. And when someone thinks like me, it makes them a genius. How close are we right now? We're good, right on, okay. Pick up on a couple of things you heard this morning. How many people said, I want to understand the customer better. I want to understand market demand better. You know, your marketing person perked up when someone said, we want to find out what the customers are thinking. That's unusual. Most marketing people already have all the answers. This is what we created, now go out and sell it. And several of you mentioned technology. How many of you agree with me that computers are evil? But we can't live with them, can't live without them. So now we're having to learn to use technology smartly. What technology will I use? What technology will I ignore? Some of it's good, some of it's not, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to look at how you can go about investing in yourself. You heard Vernon talk about a couple of significant investments he's made in the organization. This company's been around for a while. You could have been just fine without making the investments. But instead, he's saying $250,000 here, a significant investment there. And what he's saying is there is a purpose for this. Don't buy just for the sake of buying. Buy with a purpose and then learn to implement. In 2005, I decided I would put my training online. It's called e-learning today. To put training online, there has to be an LMS, a learning management system, and there were very few at that time, so I built a software company. And we built a LMS, which is so obsolete it has been trashed. Today, there are more than 650 of these learning systems out there, and they continue to get better and better. During that time, I knew I would need to learn some new software. So I learned one new software program every month for about 6 months. And then I started learning one new software program every week for the rest of the year. I would download the free version, play with it. Can this help us? Yes. Is it all glitz and glamour? That's not going to help us. So you need to be doing the same thing. I continue to do the same things. I want to change who I am, and the only way I can change who I am and what I'm doing is to think differently. We want to do things differently. Would you finish this sentence for me? If I always do what I've always done, I'll have less than I've ever had before. The days are gone when I could always do what I've always done and always get what I've always got. The world is changing. The competition is going to move ahead. The industry is going to move ahead. Processes, technology, they're all going to move ahead. And as a result of that, I need to decide, what will I change? Not am I going to change anything, but what will I change? It turns out that Einstein was wrong. He was wrong about a lot of things, but he was wrong about this. He is credited with saying the popular definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and somehow expecting a different outcome. Well, guess what? If we continue to do the same thing over and over again, we will will have a different outcome, and it's not one that we are going to appreciate. The competition is going to eat our lunch. Technologies are going to come and go. And so I resist technology like some of you do, but yet I've learned that I have to embrace it. The CRM is one of the most difficult programs to implement. Us salespeople are salespeople. So when the boss says we're going to implement a CRM, us salespeople know to go to the boss and say, look, do you want me out selling or do you want me putting numbers in boxes? And what's your answer? Yes, I want you out selling and putting numbers in boxes. You're going to have to find a way to do both. And so there's always that initial resistance. But every one of my clients who's gone through that, implementing the CRM, has found that once it's fully implemented, you can't take it away from the salespeople. It's like having your own personal assistant. Even if you work from home, even if you work in multiple offices, you've got that same personal assistant going with you everywhere. So we need to decide right now we're going to do something different, and what we're going to do different is based on who we are.